So thanks for taking the time for us to do what I'm considering part two of the presentation on leadership, self-mastery. So a couple weeks ago at the Leaders Think Up, you shared a part of your journey, how you got to where you are, broad strokes.
Right.
And what I'm really curious about and think that many would benefit from is the personal piece of this.
Okay.
Your philosophy, your ideology, and how you do what you do. Okay. So we have the succeed, self-mastery, the 7 pillars.
Okay.
And so they're broken up into, who you would surround yourself with. How do you understand yourself? Where you fit as far as gratitude is concerned, envisioning your success. Some of those 7 practices. So I want to just go through. We don't need to itemize them, but I'd like to go through just in general, getting a sense from you about how you're able to succeed in the space that you're in. And perhaps a good place to start with that is, what is your definition of success? What to you would say, I am succeeding?
Okay, so let me start there with success, my definition. To me, success is creating my own personal freedom, right? It could be financial or otherwise, right? To me, succeeding is getting up, doing what I love, without being told how to do it, when to do it, and why to do it. It's just complete freedom of myself within this universe and this time and space, right?
Wow, that's big. What exactly would give you that kind of success, that freedom where you can do things on your terms at will?
It's really called risk.
Okay.
It really is, because, when I decided to get out of the world of working for someone else and starting my own business where I have creative freedom and other forms of freedom, it was a big risk. It really was. Closer. I am not on my premium YouTube channel where commercials come on. It's usually
it's very soothing music. I'll say that in the back.
Because the ads came on. That's what kind of disrupted the flow. So, just to pick up on that, the risk of starting my own business was the first step in the journey of freedom, really, right? And so, you okay? This is nice, by the way. I like this drink.
Thank you. Talk.
So, it's without risk, you don't get the reward of anything, really. It's really a measure of. And when you think about it, if you look in your life, right, some of the greatest success you may have had, it came because you risked and you did something. If we laid and took no risk, we're in the same place every day, right? So, I hope that answers the question.
Can you say that kind of risk is the privilege of those who are already pretty much well along in the game? Because we talk about that. We talk about go out and dare to do it and, take a chance. Is that easier said than done? For example, if I'm looking at someone, let's say a woman, single mom, children, when there are others who their very being depends on what you decide to do. Would you still be able to say, yes, one has to go out and take a risk when there's so much more at stake than just your own definition of success or freedom?
Yeah. Well, to me, the definition of risk does not incorporate having the perfect condition to go out there and explore what you want, right? So, for example, when I started my business, I already had 2 kids and 1 on the way, right? Now I had a partner, but it didn't take away from the fact that financially it's going to be a big hit. There's a lot of uncertainty, right? Certainly we have to be sensitive to our condition, but it's looking at some of the worst condition that you can be in, and at the same time say, hey, I'm going to just go forward with this because it's going to have a return. I truly believe that in the years to come, right? I could just have sat and got another job at X amount of thousand and go through the grind of trying to pay the bills, and it would have suffocated me. I could not live my life like that at all, right? Especially when you know yourself enough, the drive you have, and the vision that you have, and not even thinking about failure in that whole process. When you see it, it's like it's so vivid, right? The day to day can really knock you down about it, but the vision of it is always stronger than the challenges that you have, right? So.
Speak to me more about that, because it's a part of what we talk about with envisioning your success. So when you talk about the vision of it, so is it that you have a clear vision of what your arrival there will look like? What is it that you're referring to when you say the vision is so clear? The process or the destination, or both?
It's primarily the destination, right? Me personally, I worked at a market research company, largest one in the world, right? And I understand the process and the product and the revenue model and everything that surrounds that. But I also was in a position to see the inefficiencies, the missed opportunities, and that, if I could say frankly, that I could build something that would make what this company is doing, look very small, right? The efficiencies, the innovations that I had in my mind, and I did present it to the company. I did present it to them. But, as they said to me, Herman, it's great ideas, but you're asking us to break everything, and we just can't do that. So essentially what they're looking for are these incremental changes, right? Which was not a part of my thought process at all. So when I envisioned, what, Herman, you can do this on your own, it's really in a way that I would come back and take you over. That's just been my mentality. And I swear to you, I will. Right? So, it's really, it comes with a lot of structure. You can't get up one day and say, okay, well, let me relax about it. There's this calm level of intensity that's that's always driving it. I watch and read a lot about what they call in the universe dark matter and dark energy, right? And then you have atoms, right? Atoms make up 5% of the universe. We're made of atoms, and so is the other objects that is in the universe. But the dark energy is what's driving the universe to move forward. You can't see it, but it's there. It's felt by the universe. So that is essentially my dark energy. I have this tremendous undercurrent to achieve what I envision. And it's just, you can't really explain it unless you feel it, but it just drives me. I don't need what they call encouragement or, motivation, or I do not need that at all. If I need your motivation, then I know that I'm not in the right place, right? Or space.
So curious about two things. Why is it considered dark as opposed to what I would think of as enlightened when I hear it?
Yeah.
And let's speak to me about that part first. Why is that dark and not enlightened?
From an astrophysics standpoint, why is it called dark energy? Or
so for someone listening, usually what comes to mind when you hear someone say dark energy and we could get into a whole other conversation about why darkness is associated with evil or bad. But usually if someone talks about a dark energy, it means that it's not something that is negative. It is a bad thing and you wouldn't want to be pulled in. But when I'm hearing you say it, it seems to mean just the opposite, that it's a positive force that's actually driving you.
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't buy into this dark is bad theory. Like, you can go sell that somewhere else. I don't buy into it. This black male, black hole, not black hole, but, black ice, all this negative stuff. I don't really buy into that because that's being sold to us, really. Okay. So, the more we buy into someone else's definition of something, the more they own us, right? It's not used to be owned by anybody.
So dark energy for you, that's pushing you, is a positive thing.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. So you are self-motivated, very driven to achieve. Do you believe that the end will justify the means? When you say, I'm going to do this and I love your result for it and I will come back and take you over.
Right.
What do you think about that quote?
We live in a world that material matters to an extent that if you don't acquire it, you can't do what you really want to do as a human being, right? If I go out there and I take over the world in the way in which I want to with this particular business, I now have the resources to turn around and direct my attention to what I think is required to balance certain situation in our world. Do you know what I mean? So the end is ultimately, how do I get resources to change things in a meaningful way? But first I have to go and build the resources to do that. I'm not going to go out there and protest to say this is not right, because people will do what satisfies them. That they're not going to change and say, hey, here you go, I'm going to be fair. I mean, Jesus, yesterday's election is proof of that, right? So, when you look at different sectors, different types of, I want to say, cultures, they know it's important to have the resources. When you have the resources, then you're respected in a way that they know that you can affect change without their influence, if that makes any sense.
It does.
Right? So I'm not going to be here with my hand out at all, because, I know that if I go out there and I build this brick by brick by brick, and now we have this, now I can start affecting the changes that really matter. Right?
So two things come to mind. Clarify for me, when you say they, who would the they be? And the other part of this is when you're now vested with your self-earned power to, as you say, do the things that you think ought to be done, which sounds very, very subjective, as it would need to be.
Right.
Where does the rest of the world stand if some of those things that you think ought to be done in the way they ought to be done does not align with the values and principles of others? And so what I'm getting at is power in the hands of people, because at the end of the day, you are who you are. I don't think that money is going to change your character. I think it will reveal it. Right? I think a poor Herman and a rich Herman, the difference is Herman has enough money to, as you said earlier, the freedom to do what you want to do on your terms. So speak to me about those two things, the they and the should I be nervous when Herman will have enough money to right the wrongs of the world and what he views as being the wrongs of the world?
Now, I have to clarify, I don't equate money to power or happiness or anything like that, okay? Me, as I sit here, I feel that I have power, right? I have power within myself to affect certain changes around. There's certain things I won't put up with. There's certain things I'll die before I accept, really. So I feel that power within myself, right? I speak to money as a resource, which is a completely different thing. I would like the resources to, like the world is not equally divided amongst the different cultures. I'll use the word culture for, not lack of a better word, but, I don't want to get too specific here. We have been disadvantaged for a long time, right?
We being?
That's black folks, right?
Okay.
I'm a black man, proud. I'm Jamaican heritage, prouder. I work in an environment where nobody looks like me, right? But that's okay. I'm fine with that. But when I see folks within my community that are disadvantaged, not because they don't have ability, but they don't belong to that group that have the resources, and that resources will only extend out once that community fully satisfy themselves and their people, for example, right? So, I don't want to be out there with my hand out to say, hey, can you give me some of that? No, I don't. But what I want to do is acquire in a way that I can say, okay, from an educational standpoint, from a economic standpoint, what can I now do with this resource? This is where you get people together. You talk about the issues that we may have, the plans that we would need to employ to resolve these issues. I'm not trying here to be a politician or a lord over anybody, but no, I believe in wrong and right in this lifetime, and whatever I can do to correct what I perceive to be wrong is what I'll try to do, and I need resources to do that. It's just like, my mother hated me for saying this, but I grew up in the church, right? Until a certain point, and I sat there and I looked up, and I felt that this was not the answer, because God gives me ability, right? And what I was hearing is, just go pray, right? Well, there's all this prayer a lot, and I'm not denouncing prayer. Sure, pray, but really count on the ability that God gave you, because that's how you're going to be measured, right? That's the return on everything in life. So I'm going to put that work in, and hopefully affect the changes that I would like to. But, again, having money does not equal happiness, does not equal power. Resources that you can use to influence change, right? to me personally, power is a mental thing, right? You can give $1 billion to someone that doesn't understand how to affect change, right? You can give $10 to someone that has the mindset to affect change, and he'll multiply that $10 and do whatever he needs to do to acquire the resources that he needs, right? It's just a mindset, really, right? It's not the money, it's just a mindset, I think.
There are those who are listening would say, that's easy to be said by someone who has money, because we live in a society where it's very clear for those that don't have as much that you're not able to wield the power one would need for the freedom you expressed earlier from the what you're able to eat, when you're able to eat, even accessing health care, because there are different tiers of that, to the privilege of the kinds of decisions that we're able to make, because we don't have to wonder where the next meal is coming from. So I hear you in terms of the importance of mindset and exercising power over where we are with what we have. But there's a very real piece of this to me, the practical piece, in acknowledging that it's not just a matter of the mind and a matter of attitude, although those two things go far away. There is a reality that with money as a resource, you're now able to leverage that particular resource to give you more of the things that you want, and systems perpetuate themselves, including poverty that perpetuates itself, and money. That, remember that movie where, was it Richard Price? Someone was trying to get rid of the money? Richard, and he couldn't get it. He couldn't. We have a more recent example of Bill Gates, Belinda. With all of the money that she's trying to give away in the charities and so on, that and I mean, the more she gives, the more
she can one day decide to give it all away. She can. But here's the thing, Sophia. Okay, here's the thing, right? Someone could win $10 million in the lottery right now, right? And blow it all in the next year. Okay,
absolutely.
Money doesn't equal power in that sense, does it?
Yes. Yeah,
it does
I
not,
agree.
right?
I agree.
Now, my story is that I don't come from money. I'm not professing to be rich or anything. I from a monetary standpoint, comparatively speaking, right? I know where I'm going to go, but I know where I came from, right? I came here, my mother, my sister and I, she was doing housework for people. We lived in very modest areas. We lived in projects at one point. I finished high school. I didn't go directly to college or university. I started working for a research company. Okay, I'll tell you this story. This is how my mindset was. Now, I have to preface this by saying, when I came to Canada from Jamaica, I came from a place where I felt very sure of who I am, right? I had grandparents that made me feel like I was the best thing in the world. I did, and that never left. So, fast forward, I get this job at 19, 20 years old. And the job was within the same area of business that I'm in right now, but it was simply what I call data entry, right? So you sit there, you input information of what's being shown on the TV screen, right? Now, the company collected advertising information, but back in those days, VCRs, I mean, we're both old enough to remember what that was. You'd put the tape in the VCR, you put the fast forward button, and you would wait for the next commercial break to come on. And then you'd start typing in the computer, okay, this is McDonald's, this is Coke, this is da-da-da-da-da, right? And then it went back to the program, and then you fast forward to the program. So opposite to what you do at home, where you'd watch a program, at this job, I'd just watch the commercial and put the information in. So the company was paying an hourly rate. And because people were going through at their leisure, they realized that they were not getting through enough data. And they met with us and said, well, we're going to give you a choice. You can go on piecework, which means every record you put in, you get paid 10 cents, for example, or you can stay on hourly rate. Okay? So we all left that meeting, and then we're going to have a follow-up meeting to, excuse me, express what we wanted to do, right? So coincidentally, I bought my first VCR, right? And so I'm at home and I pushed the VCR and then I recorded something, so I wanted to fast forward to get to it, right? So I pushed the fast forward button and the machine just went zip really fast to the point that I wanted to get to. So I said, wow, okay, so something clicked, right? So the next day, the Monday I went back to work, I went into the supervisor's office and I said, I want to get off hourly rate and I want to go on piecework.
Of course.
She said, okay, because no one else did, right? Oh. I said, well, do you mind if I bring my own VCR to work, right? She looked at me strangely and she says, okay. So I said, okay, thanks. So I went out, I bought a bag for my VCR because I know I'm going to be traveling back and forth with this VCR every day. And so I bring the machine, I set it up, and everyone started to think that I'm a little bit odd, right? And I sat there, and every time the program came on, I pushed the button, zzz, commercial break. Zzz, commercial breaks. So by the end of that week, on this piecework implementation that they had, they calculated that these machines are going to go so fast, and they built their compensation rate based on that factor, just those variables. So after a month, I was making more money than my supervisor's supervisor. Okay. And then they called me in the office and they're like, what's going on? Why are you making so much money on this piecework? We calculated that you can only make X amount. We just wanted to make sure that people did their job in an accurate way. But now you're making 4 times this much.
Wasn't the plan.
So I was honest enough to say that, well, I realized that the machine would get to the ads a lot quicker, therefore it would allow me to enter more. This was at 20 years old, okay? So when you have a particular mindset, you find opportunities in pretty much whatever there is. It's just the mindset, okay? You know, not everyone is born with it, I guess, or not everyone wants to acknowledge it. It's easy to be more comfortable, right? And comfort is where success dies, really. If you're comfortable, you're not advancing anything, right? You're just not. Right? It's how they say, there's such change, there's such turbulence and change. But on the other side of that is something better, right? So I cannot live my life without having that feeling that I'm either scared about something, I'm uncertain about something, because I know on the other side of that is something better, right?
I love that you brought up fear. And I love that you're saying, basically you don't ever want to be comfortable. So is it that you are committed to a life of never being comfortable, because then
well,
it will never be enough. You'll just keep going. Put it
this way. Someone said something to me that it sort of fascinated me. It's this friend of mine, Afghanistan. He said, Herman, because we were talking about the constant war in his country. He said, Herman, at this point, the Afghan people are only at peace when they're at war.
Wow.
Okay? Think about that. So my
The state of familiarity.
discomfort that I call it's actually a point of comfort for me.
Okay.
Right? So
Okay. Yeah. No. So yeah, that's your comfort zone. That makes a lot of sense. So tell me then, because you talked about you need to feel that fear. What are you fearful of, and what do you do with it?
What I'm fearful of is feeling fearful. Right? Yeah. I when the feeling of I'm going to be fearful of something coming in, I really analyze why would I feel fearful of that? Like what truly can happen, right? Now, once I realize what that could be, then I prepare for that, right? You know, if I have to cross this water that I'm afraid to cross, I try to figure out how I can get across that water in a way that I will get across, right? I don't sit there resonating with the fear of what I have to do. It's like, okay, you're fearful of this because you're not prepared. So prepare yourself, right? But don't live with the fear, right?
What would fear feel like for you then? How do you know? What is that? What does it look like and feel like?
Mm-hmm. It's, you know, again, it's a matter of, one, am I prepared to face what's coming, right? So if you're prepared for example, my daughter is 17 years old and she's in her university years, her last year of high school before she goes to university, right? And she says to me, Dad, I'm scared about my test tomorrow, right? I said, did you prepare, right? She said, yeah, I think so, right? I said, well, the amount of fear that you're feeling is telling you that there's a certain amount of preparation that you have not done, right? Because it balances out, right? If I studied for this test, I can go through any areas of this particular area of math and no problem at all. How much fear do you think I'll have going into that test? Little to none, right? If I'm not prepared at all, I'll be petrified, right? So there's a relationship there, right?
I like that. But what do you do about the unknown? In the case of a test, you know, what's going to show up on that test is in front of me in this book and these notes. Mm-hmm. There are other things in life where you don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what's coming next. So in your business, for example, you have no idea. Yeah. So to a certain extent, you're not able to prepare for what that thing that you don't know may be. So what do you do? Yeah. Just generally speaking, how do you show up in life that you are now prepared for the unknown and whatever may come?
I mean, one, you have to know the unknown. You normally don't know, right? And two, as long as you know that you've prepared as much as you possibly can, the rest is left up to faith, and you just have to walk through that, right?
I like that. It's just fate. Yeah. Just fate. So it sounds to me like you understand yourself. Would you, on a scale of 1 to 10, because we're talking about, and that's the second practice in Succeed Self-Mastery, understand yourself, the you and the succeed. Right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you understand yourself?
This might surprise you, but I'd say 5%.
5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm made of atoms, right? Going back to the analogy that I said at the beginning, 95% of the universe is dark matter, and dark energy, right? And all that is unknown to us, right? We only know what is structured from an atomic level, right? So we use this, it's something like 10% of our brain at the most, at the genius level, okay? So how can I say I know myself beyond that, really?
Interesting take on it.
Right.
So in terms of being able to...
And 5% is a lot. Don't discount it.
In that context, it's a heck of a lot. In general terms or practical terms, and as far as being able to predict what your actions would be in a given situation, as far as understanding what you need to do for you in order to have this, would you say that you understand yourself quite well? You can really predict your responses, your next moves, you can tell if something is the fear we talked about earlier. You can recognize that. Would you say, where are you with that?
I'm quite comfortable with that because I do a lot of self-analysis. I do, a lot of people accuse me of overthinking. I think that's quite oxymoronic. Right? But, you know, what they don't understand is that it's a part of understanding yourself as much as possible. I like to do that, you know? And so I'm quite comfortable with where I am from a standpoint that the environments that I have to operate in, whether it's my personal life or my business life, I do a lot of self-assessment, a lot of observation, in ways people don't even know that I'm doing that, right?
For example?
So, you know, we have this thing called intuition, right? And when you try to understand yourself so much, I could just meet you, right? And feel a particular energy that resonates from you because I'm in tuned. Do you know what I mean? I am completely in tuned. And because how can I say? And I don't want to, I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but we always know what we want from each other. Okay? And what we do is we present ourselves in a way that if I know you well enough to know that red is a color that motivates you, right? I am not going to show up forcing blue on you, right? Now, I could gradually bring you over to blue, but I have to understand the type of person, how you react to certain things. And that comes with these very, very small exchanges, right? When I go into a meeting and I shake someone's hand, the way they shake my hand, the way they hold their head, the way they turn after they shake my hand, all this is information that I collect, right? Because I need to understand in order for me to be effective. And this is not a manipulative type of thing. It's really understanding what you are. So our interaction, we both can walk away with what makes us somewhat satisfied.
Or you having had the upper hand.
Well, I can only be tuned in, and I can't force you to be tuned in. You know what I mean? Certainly, and I say to people, I operate on intent, right? My intent is never, ever, ever to take advantage of anybody. My intent always is a fair exchange. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, fair is subjective, right? But here's the line: violation, right? You know, in the Bible they have the Ten Commandments. Mm-hmm. We have all kinds of laws. But when you look at the base of it, all of it comes down to violation, right? So, for example, if I took this and you didn't give it to me, mm-hmm. that would be stealing, right? I've just violated you, okay? If you said, Herman, you can have this, it's still in my possession, but it's a gift, right? You're not going to go to the police saying this man stole my da-da-da-da-da. So if you broaden that out to life, we can do anything we want together as long as no one's being violated, okay? The minute I take or do something from you that you didn't grant permission for, it crosses that line of violation, right? Look at all the criminal code, for example, right? Why people go and say that they're charging this person with this crime or that, it's violation.
But what about in the case where I don't know that you're extracting something from me, because there's certainly a level of sophistication or self-knowledge that you possess, that when you come into this relationship, the fact that you can say to me, I am going to interpret the handshake you just gave. I am going to interpret the way that you just tilted your head. Unless both of us are coming to the table with the same level of understanding of human behavior, etc., you're choosing to use those particular cues, unknown to me, would certainly be giving you the upper hand in this relationship when you say, well, no, you're getting something from me, I'm getting something from you. And further to that, I would ask, why wouldn't you just be explicit about it, so we're not playing the games and using intuition? I would just say, so Herman, listen.
It's okay. Listen, it's not that you don't know it about you. It's that you don't want to share it to me at that point in time. Okay? You know yourself. It's my job to know you enough so that we can have an exchange that, let's be frank, if I go into business and I don't equip myself in, for example, before I contact someone, I find out as much as I can about them and their business. I prepare, okay? I don't go into this blind, okay? So that extends out to understand human behavior, okay?
Yes.
Because when you do that, someone who has bad intent cannot get over on you. So the first line is protection. Okay, can I trust you, right? But the second line is, okay, I want to advance something, and I have to understand how to advance that with you, right? So I'll go to folks in the production world in France. They'll say, oh, that's great. It's neat, that app is neat, right? And then I'll say, well, beyond it being neat, right? What is your process in funding your films, right? How many times do you have to go for investors and da-da-da-da-da, right? How would you like to have a structure, an environment where every time you make a film, there's thousands of brands there that are happy to participate in being showcased in your content, right? Whether it's clothing or furniture, whatever the case is, right? Imagine how that is going to monetize what you're doing right now without you having to worry about how do I get this funded, right? So what I'm coming here is to present you with an opportunity, financial opportunity, right? So I'm not here trying to sell my product to you. I am trying to provide value to you for you using this product, right? Or else it's not a fair exchange.
Spoken as a first-class salesman. This is all about you. It's not about me selling to you.
Yeah,
it's about me helping you to meet a particular need you may not even know you have.
No, but I will express that to you, and I'll ask you about it. If you said no, thank you, I'm happy to. I'm happy for you, right?
Not going to show me that I'm wrong?
No, I'm not. If I present something to you and you are not at a point where you can't see it, then it's not going to be a good relationship at all.
Okay. I love it.
Right? It's just not.
I love it. So speak to me.
It goes on a personal level too. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to chase after you, right? If what I present to you, right? If you can't reason enough to say, okay, well, that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense. Let me follow it right here and then see where that goes from there. If you're walking away from this opportunity, then what that tells me is if I engage with you at some point, because the way you make your decision now worries me, right? At some point, there is going to be an issue that, it's going to be, how can I say? It has potential to be more damaging because now once you compromise yourself, right, then, and you're exposed, you can get hurt more, right? So if you can't pick up on the bad decisions in the beginning and you chase into that room, guess what? You're now in that room. You're locked, right? When the bad decisions come flying, try getting out of that room quickly. It's just, no, it doesn't make sense.
So pay attention. See the cues, accept them for what they are. So for you, it's I'm not going to chase because you've given me the answer. The fact that you're at this place tells me that you're not my person.
Yeah.
At least not right now.
No, not right now.
Not right now.
And if I'm in here with the objective of knowing that I need to change you as a person, well, that's what they're doing. But if I'm not, then that is not what I'm going to try to do,
Which brings me to the first pillar in surrounding yourself with the right people. Who do you surround yourself with?
Mostly myself. I mean, I'm just being honest, right?
Really?
I'm just being honest. I do have friends. I don't have friends that have the level of ambition that I have. But what I get out of that is peace, My good friends and I, we care about each other and I trust them, right? So I can't really talk to them about what I do in a way that they'll remotely understand. I just can't, So sure, they say have people that are like-minded in terms of how their level of ambition is and all that stuff. But I find it more important to have someone that you can trust, give you peace of mind, because when you need to sort of walk away from this after a long day, then going to someone that is also like-minded is not the most peaceful thing to do, because you're always, that's their objective. They're strong about it. This is mine. I'm strong about it. And I don't need motivation to advance what I want to do. So like-minded people, they don't do anything for me at all. Right? To me, be around, you know, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It works for some people. But to me, being around like-minded people is me saying that I need motivation, right? I need to have people who see things like, no, I don't need any of them. None. I don't. And I'm being honest with you, right? So what I look outside of my, what I call controlled chaos is peace. Wherever I can find peace, that's what satisfies me to come back in here and continue on.
So you find your peace externally because internally what you have is control chaos?
No, I think the question is, I think being around other people.
Yeah, who do you surround yourself with?
Who do I surround myself with, right? So if I am to answer that question, that is what I go out to other people for, right? Within myself, I have all the motivation I need, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Control chaos.
Yeah.
That I like that term. Are you in control of the chaos?
I'd like to think I am, Sophia. I mean, I'm sitting here calmly with you.
Fair enough.
I got 500 million things out there. That's all back here.
In here?
But you know, it's an orchestra, right?
Are you always on?
In what way?
You're very driven.
Mm-hmm.
And the space that you are comfortable in is a space where there's always a whole lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
It strikes me as being that you are always on, the app is always running. You're always thinking about that thing to take you to the next place.
Mm-hmm.
So the control chaos is there. I will put this in the back, not too far, but back enough so I can speak with Sophia for now. So, but it's always on.
Yeah, it is.
It is always on.
It is always on, yeah.
Has it always been that way? That's just who you are? That's your wiring?
I would, you know, I didn't have full self-awareness until I was, I'd say, in my mid-20s. But in retrospect, from that point, I would say yeah, because when I look at all the things that I was doing, even as a kid, it was always something, you know what I mean? There was always some form of activity. So that means something was on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did your self-awareness come from in your 20s?
It's sort of progressed, and I spoke to you about the religious component. I was in church. I had to go to Sunday school. Yeah, even when my mom had to work, she had to work 2-3 jobs, right? And we didn't have cell phone back then. But somehow she knew if I wasn't in church or not without her being. So you know,
Moms,
I really, you know, I grew up in a bad neighborhood, and I was more afraid of her than anybody out there in that neighborhood. I swear to God, really. So, and she was a single mom, you know, 5'3".
Why? What was it about her?
She was relentless. Okay, if my mother said make your bed, okay, she's not going to forget about it. Okay, she's not gonna. And the 1 or 2 times that I didn't make my bed, she went on for about a week about it. Okay, that does something to you. It really does. I mean, you know, if 1 minute, so I'll make your bed, and then I didn't make it, and she didn't make a fuss. Okay, I know that I can push this back and push this back. No, not in this case. I like anything that she wanted done, and if I didn't do it, I knew she was not going to not follow up. Okay? She was just not going to, like,
let it slide.
As busy as she was, like, she told me to come home, 17 years old, like, oh, I want you home before it gets dark. All my friends are out there playing ball in the court, everything. Herman, where are you going? I gotta go home. Why? My mom. But then, so I said, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna go home. I'm just gonna finish this game and take the next game. I go home. She didn't give me a key either, right? Or she would take it away when she's going to be home, right? I come and knock on the door. It's like nobody answered. I know she's home. I know my sister's home. I sit down and I see that people, you know how people get covered when someone's looking out? So she's looking out, making sure that I'm there. But she ain't going to just let me in. It's not going to be easy. You are 10 minutes late. I'm not going to. And I'd sit out there until she figured, okay, so open the door. And it's like a cautious walk to the door. Because she's a Jamaican parent and she's got the slipper behind her. And as soon as it come in, it's like, and then I run and it's all hear is the slipper hitting the wall as I turn the corner. So, I mean, Jamaican parents, that's not an uncommon story, right? I mean, they care. And, my mother did not want me to get mixed up in that situation out there, right?
Okay. Sorry, I digress. I was curious about that, but you were talking to me about your self-awareness and how you came into that in your 20s.
So going back to the church story, I was simply sitting there watching this man talk, and it wasn't making a lot of sense to me. And by this time, I was in my late teens, right? And so I just had just enormous need to start getting information about life and our existence and everything. And I'm not a big reader, but I read so much. I read about anthropology. I read about genetics. I read about religion. I just wanted to put it all together to know, okay, where do I fit in all this, regardless of all this information that's coming to me. And I just feel people, for their own benefit, want me to fall in line and be what benefits them. And a big part of me did not want to accept that at a young age, right? So it's the same Herman that's bringing his own VCR into work and everything, I was in it, but I wasn't part of it. You know what I mean? Like, I grew up amongst these guys that, did things, and I didn't judge them. You do what you want, but I'm not going to do that. And they respected that because I wasn't fearful of doing that. That's not for me. Knock yourself out, face whatever consequences that comes with that. I see life in a different way. Like, I'm not going to chase this, I'm not going to chase that, because to me that's small. Like, for you it's big, but we're different.
I get the impression there isn't an issue with your self-talk. It's quite elevated. Am I correct? Yeah, just the things you say to yourself, your own thoughts. Okay. And, oftentimes people will talk about the fact that we will be hard on ourselves, as in the way that we criticize or our own self-doubt, or how we approach a situation. So what we're thinking, based oftentimes on what we've grown up hearing or our lived experiences, it can actually act as a block. Oh, I better not do that, because if I do that, then this person's going to come after. So it becomes very limiting, as opposed to if my self-talk is, I'm really amazing, I should go try that. What's the worst that could happen? Even if it doesn't work out, I'll do something else. So I am curious to know, when the thoughts that come to you in life as you are dealing with challenges, or as you're thinking about doing something else, what is your self-talk usually? Is it one where you have to be mindful and say, Herman, you shouldn't say that? Or is it more, no, I got this, I'm good? Or is it a combination, a hybrid?
That's a very good question. The way I see things is if I see something that I think would be good for me, I get sort of tunnel vision, right? It's like how can I say this nicely?
You don't have to be nice.
It's I'm not going to lose. I'm not going to lose. I'm not. I'll pursue it with every fiber, every particles in my body. Because if I lock in and say, okay, this is what's going to be good for me, no, it's. I don't think about anything. So I don't think about failing at it. I don't think. If I do pursue it and it doesn't work out, I release it completely, right? Because I've given everything of myself to get it. And if I didn't get it, then something is bigger outside of me that has determined that. So, well, that's it. Like, what else can I do, right? So my self-taught is if you want it, Herman, okay, this is what you need to make this happen, okay? You know what to do. Go after it with every single, like, I talked to you about shaking someone's hand, understanding who the person is. So now my mind starts to get structured in a way that, okay, here is how I get that, right? And so that's what consumes me after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your self-talk really works in concert with helping you to pursue whatever goals you've put in place. Do you write down your goals? Do you live by a system of creating and then pursuing goals? Or
no. When I have a goal in mind, it just doesn't leave me. It's not. I don't need a reminder. I don't need an encouragement. I don't need anything. It just becomes a part of who I am. It just does. Now, if we're talking about, procedural, like today I'll sit here with one of my staff members, and it was okay. We've intimate common friends. We had all these contacts. Here are the, let's say, top most likely to do this. We put them in this category. Yeah, we strategically plan the execution. At the end of it, the goal can be to have acquisition of 25% of that, right? But to me, it's a process, right? And so, yeah, from a business standpoint, of course, you document these things. But from overall goal, if this is what we're talking about.
How do you have people say their goals, are they written down for you? Do you have a particular way of approaching them? Do you check back in on them? No. Is there anything that's deliberate and systematic, or is it?
The goal is the hierarchy, at the pinnacle of it. The execution is all these different things that the strategy, the plan, and the execution, everything, that's just all cascades down from that. But you can't forget, my God, you go out there and you look at the sun every day. You can't ignore it. It shines all over you. It makes you feel warm, right? So, do I need to write that down? No, not at all, right? Okay. But, like I said, certainly, you have to have a plan on how to achieve the goals. Because it's just fantasy at that point,
Right. So to make it a reality, you need to put something in place.
Yeah.
Okay. And finally, when we talk about succeeding in self-mastery, I want to ask you about your discipline. How disciplined are you? If you are, would you consider yourself to be a very disciplined person?
I wouldn't consider it myself. It might come as a contradiction of everything that I've said, but I treat myself in a way that if, for example, I own my own business, right? I don't have to get up at this time or that time or that time or that time, right? However, I get up at 4, 5, 6 in the morning, right? Knowing that I don't have to, there's a certain freedom to that. But because of my drive, it makes me happily get up. You know what I mean? So, in a way, I'm self-disciplined, but if I just like, you know what, I've had enough of this for today. I know I said I wanted to finish here, but I know that the best thing to do is get up, go give myself a walk by the water. That is more important than being disciplined to get tasks done, you know? Because I am collecting energy or fuel to come back to it in a way that I'm going to be more effective. So from that standpoint, I would say that I'm not disciplined. Sometimes I just want to go have some fun, just like, you know, whatever.
So
and
you're
if
flexible.
someone calls me and I'm like, oh, that sounds like fun, I'll drop this and I'll go do that in a way that it's going to feed me from a standpoint where I come back to this, I can tear through it. Right. You know what I mean?
So you love flexibility within the discipline as it exists.
Yeah.
And it's tied back to your own sense of self and understanding you that, like you said, I can take the time to go and do this. I don't have to be rigid.
Yeah.
And it's going to fuel me for me to come back and do what I need to do even more efficiently.
Yeah.
So you're on point. I love it. And last, I want to ask about your gratitude and curiosity. I'll put those two together. So you're cultivating an attitude of gratitude and your curiosity. Do you practice that at all? Do you live in a space where you would say you're deliberate about being grateful? Mm-hmm. And do you cultivate a healthy sense of curiosity? Or is that for you just, you know, out there?
No. Gratitude is a really big part of who I am. It's just a part of the whole, how can I say, my whole being, right? Because I observe the world of the universe in a way that for some reason I receive this existence. Like I am here in this life, this dimension, as little as we know about it, right? I can have a conversation with you. It's like, it's beautiful. It's like, I go out there, I look at the water, I look at the moon last night. Like, I mean, I'm completely fascinated by it all, right? So my biggest point of being grateful is getting up every morning, open my eyes, I can see, right? Getting out of bed, I can walk. Like, I can do all these things. Right? I would never, ever take that for granted. Everything else, you know, because if I was to get sick right now, guess what would matter? Nothing but my health, right? Nothing. So it really tells you what is the most important part of your being is the fact that you can be, you know. So, no, gratitude is a big part of my psyche completely, right? So, your other question was?
Curiosity. Would you say you're...
Yeah, I'm very, very, very curious about, I mean, I've talked to you a lot about physics and quantum physics, and because, you know, I went through the path of being taught what a lot of people perceive God to be, right? That was not really for me. I do believe in a superior God, if you will, but not in the format that's been laid out by human beings, really. So I'm very curious about how where all this comes from. Like, where is it going? How did that tree grow? What comes from the ground? And does it have intelligence? It's like my mind is just consumed with, like a lot of people just walk by something that is this, you step on this every day. No, I go down to understanding and appreciating the fact that it exists in some way. Do you know what I mean? So from a technology is one of my biggest curiosity, because it ties in with the universe. Technology is nothing but binary, ones and zeros, okay? And when I learned that, in terms of the basic nature of how this works, 1 is on, 0 is off. But if you start combining 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0, now you have a character of an A. You change that combination, you get a character of a B. And then you multiply that out. This is going to determine a color, this could determine a movement, this could determine to where we are, artificial intelligence, okay? Human beings were built in a very similar manner, right? Where we are quite binary, right? We grow up as children, we learn things, we feel things, and all the decisions that we make are based on that, right? There's an equation happening, right? Obviously more complex.
Many more variables.
And they're trying to make artificial intelligence get to the point that you won't notice the difference, and it will get there, trust me. But I can work in a space that satisfies a lot of my curiosity. Like, I love nature. I love the universe and the construct of atoms and quarks and everything that makes up material in this world, and things that we don't understand, such as dark energy, right? So, yeah, my curiosity runs vast. People, curious about people, different types of people, and just,
Do you apply it in your leadership in any way? That curiosity?
Oh, massively. Like, it drives these people crazy. Like, so they call me ADD or ADHD, whatever they call it.
ADHD?
Yeah, because I'm in a process and something comes up and I'm like, whoa, wait. Let's, Herman, let's get back on track about this. Like, it happened today a few times. So, yeah, I do. But they see that I do it in a way that it contributes to what we're doing, because it ties back, right? I'm not just off there curious in ways that is either destructive or anything like that. Not consciously anyway, right?
It's interesting. So, because you applied a label to it, right? Mm-hmm. The idea of branching off from the existing topic to literally, this is a routine, you go branch over here, and people say, well, that's ADHD, and you're saying, well, no, because it's actually related to this, and you're able to bring it back. So it's your curiosity that's taking you over there, not necessarily that it's just acting as a distraction. You're seeing something else.
That's a very good point, It is,
and you're connecting it back.
It is exactly that, right?
To this.
My biggest motto to the people that I work with, and for the new people that come on, I'll say to them, just remember one thing. Never, ever, ever compromise the objective. Ever. Okay? If we have an objective to meet, we're all going to move in that direction. If you don't want to support the objective, if you don't want to be part of the objective, let me know. Right? Because the minute that your energy is not supporting that objective, that energy resonates like you would not believe, right? And it's not going to work.
It's contagious.
It can be, but on the flip side of that, it could make you face a tsunami, because everyone else buy into not compromising the objective. And the minute you start, they're there to just bowl you over. It doesn't have to be me, right? No, because they're invested in the objective, right?
How? How do you get them invested in the objective?
I show them return for themselves, right? It doesn't have to be completely financial return, but the joy of coming and doing and being a part of something that you believe.
I want to talk to you about your self-care. How do you take care of you? That whole notion of
like, in what way?
Self-care. What does self-care mean to you?
Like mean going to the barber?
And it's interesting that you should say that, because we talk about E, which is exercising self-care.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people do tie it to an event. I'm going to go get my nails done. I'm going to go get my hair. And you've done that. But for me, there are other ways of practicing self-care. Self-care is around boundaries. Self-care is around being able to say to someone no, or saying yes more often. Right. So for you, when you hear the term self-care, is that something you're deliberate about, or if it's just, it's just one of those, catchphrases we talk about self-care, but it's not something you're deliberate about ensuring there's no routine or ritual that you're saying, I'm taking. I heard you said you went for a walk, for example.
I feed my soul, so maybe that's self-care. I am drawn to the water because I'm from the water, right? So pretty much every morning, 2 days will not pass by and I don't see the water, right?
Really?
No, ever. And so that's a big part of my self-care, right? I also like to shop for, I like things that aesthetically pleasing, right? So I like clothes, right? I like women's clothing. I don't buy it for myself. But, if I see something that will look good on someone, I can picture it. You know what I mean? So, often go to the mall just to look at what these people created, because I can appreciate that level of creation, because that's their passion as well, So I do that. That brings me a lot of mental stability. I just love to see things that are symmetrically put together as well, So, those two things I think are my biggest. And, I have 4 girls, and it's nice for me to advise them when they listen, and do what I can as a father to put them in the trajectory that's going to make their lives satisfying to them. I don't believe in telling them what to do, but I will offer my opinion on what I think things will result in, and if that's what they desire, then you pursue that. But just think about what that leads to, and correct if it's not what you want, and pursue if it is, right? So yeah.
Are there words that you live by that you would share with someone, or tips that you would want to give, a quote?
This quote, I think I've told you many times. For those who choose not to go within, will always go without. Right? And it's a very, very powerful quote. Be happy with who you are, because if you cannot be happy with who you are, nobody can make you happy. So for those who choose not to go within, will always go without. All right?
Words of wisdom. Thank you, Herman. Thank
you
for taking. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time and for sharing this. I appreciate it.
Hey, I enjoy talking to you.
A great deal.
So,
that is awesome. Fascinating man, Herman.
Oh.